Was there a fourth witness to the apparitions at Fatima? Occupying Till He Comes at Southwest Prophecy Ministries.
Welcome, friends. This is Dane Rome, your announcer for today's Last Days Beacon program. Thanks again for listening, and thanks for joining us. And just a reminder that these programs are supported by your gifts to this ministry. If you would like to contribute to this ongoing faith ministry, which deals with biblical prophecy and current events, simply go to our website to contribute. Our website address is www.swpm.us. You'll find a donate link on the homepage. The website address again is www.swpm.us. Thanks for your prayers and support for this ongoing faith ministry. We're doing a series of interviews with L.A. Marzulli regarding his new film entitled Fatima 2, Strange Phenomena. This film is explosive as it contains never-before-seen photographs from the 1917 events in Fatima, Portugal. Do these photographs prove that a disc-like object went over the crowd on the moors of Fatima almost 101 years ago? Does it validate many of the eyewitnesses who claim to have seen a dull silver disc? Well, let's join Dr. Snichter as he discusses this and many other amazing events that occurred at Fatima with researcher and filmmaker L.A. Marzulli.
Thank you, Dane. It is a great joy again today to have L.A. Marzulli back on the program for part 3 of our discussion of his latest DVD entitled Fatima 2, Strange Phenomenon. And now the word phenomenon is plural. There was not just a strange phenomena that took place in Fatima in 1917, but a multiplicity of phenomenon that were witnessed by upwards of 70,000 people gathered in the field outside of Little Fatima, Portugal. So this was one of the most, heavily witnessed events of the early part of the 20th century. As I've told you in the past, L.A. is a Christian researcher, writer, and filmmaker with a particular expertise on the subject of UFOs, extraterrestrials, alien abductions, Nephilim, and apparitions. And I'm sure you're wondering if this is your first show as to which of these L.A. believes the miracle of Fatima was. So L.A., welcome back to our show today.
Thanks for having me on, David. Appreciate it.
We've been talking about the eyewitness accounts of what happened outside of Fatima, Portugal on October 13th, 1917. And on today's program, we're going to dig a little bit deeper and begin to explore the strange phenomenon that took place that day and in the months leading up to October 13th. Now, as we've mentioned in previous programs, in the months leading up to October 13th, there was an apparition that appeared to 3 Portuguese children named Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta. These children are well known in Fatima literature. But L.A., in your research, however, you have uncovered a fourth witness. Tell us about this fourth witness and what she saw.
Well, the fourth witness comes to us via Fatima de Armada, who, again, as I spoke in the other 2 shows that we did, Fatima had access to the sanctuary. And while reading over the documents, she realized that there was a woman, Carolina Carriera, who had an encounter with an entity. And so she sought the woman out, which is incredible. And I actually published in the film a picture of Carolina circa 1970, and Tina found her and got her story once again. And this woman, like Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, she's out tending sheep, She's illiterate, and she's out tending sheep, and over the same tree that the apparition would appear to Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, this clothed entity, this clothed child is there. He's wearing like a white frock, which goes down basically to his ankles. But Carolina, it's got, whatever this kid is, it's got long blonde hair, which is extremely rare in Portugal, if seen at all. And Carolina's not sure it's a boy or a girl. It's very androgynous looking. And it communicates with her telepathically, telling her to come here. Carolina's afraid and she won't go. Smart kid. And she looks back at the sheep seem to be paralyzed. And when she looks back to try to find the child is no longer below the tree. The child with the blonde hair is now floating above the tree. Needless to say, normal human beings don't do this. So this was the fourth witness, which completely has gone under the radar. No one ever talks about Carolina Carriera and what she saw. And once again, if you do press into it, it'll say, oh, Carolina saw an angel. I'm not buying that for 1 second. Carolina saw an entity, a childlike entity, who communicated with Carolina telepathically. So that being the case, I don't believe it was any messenger, angelos. That's what the word angel stands for. I know you know that. But I don't believe it was a messenger. I believe it was part of the deception. But her encounter goes completely under the radar. Most people aren't aware of the fourth witness. And that childlike entity that appears, it's the same tree that the entity that appeared to Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta. It's exactly the same location, same tree. So all that is extremely interesting. And thanks to Fina the Armada, we have an idea of what actually happened before May 13th, 1917.
Can we assume, L.A., that Carolina's encounter with this strange entity, this female apparition, was independent or a different encounter at a different time than that the other three Portuguese children experienced?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's exactly what happened.
So it's
in advance of what Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta would see.
But it was the same type of apparition that the other three children observed, if I'm understanding.
The other three children saw a woman in a short skirt, more brighter than the sun, supposedly, who was holding some round spear-like thing in her hand and communicated with them telepathically. First of all, women in that period of time did not wear short dresses. That's just something not even prostitutes would do. It's hard to grasp, hard for us in modernity in the present day to go back to 1917. But, just look at what women were wearing. They were wearing dresses that fell to their ankles. That's what they wore. So here's this entity, supposedly Mary the Bible, wearing a short dress that goes just below the knee. In fact, when the children told the bishop and Father Pierre what they had seen, what the entity looked like, they were troubled by this thing. Father Fumagalli was deeply troubled by it, because why would Mary the Bible appear in a short dress? She wouldn't.
Right.
So it's again, Fatima is extremely complex, and the deeper we dug, we discovered that there was ancient goddess worship throughout the entire region. The sacred feminine was what was worshipped. The goddess Mora. She had castrated priests. It was just, and some of these things, some of these cults are still in existence today. They're serpent cults, and they are actually still in existence in the northern part of Portugal as we speak.
So the history of female apparitions in this part of the world, i.e. Portugal, perhaps other areas of Spain, there's a long history of female apparitions in this part of the world.
Yes.
So this may not be totally out of character with other such apparitions or phenomenon that had taken place perhaps for centuries, if perhaps not millennia, before these four Portuguese children saw this female apparition?
The idea of goddess worship stems all the way back into Babylon, and then winds up with Inanna, Astarte, Diana, the Ephesians. It just gets carried right through. It starts with Babylonia with Ashtaroth, Ashtaroth, and it just progresses. And when the Christian era finally gets there, it's thousands of years of goddess worship. And the problem is when the Christian era gets there, it really never goes up against that principality, which has ruled that area for millennia and continues to do so, in my opinion. So the ancient goddess worship, all it did was just change its face. And, look, it's part of the deception that we hear about in the last days. And this is why I made the film, to show people that when the Bible tells us that Satan will fear with all signs and lying wonders, this is exactly what we're looking at. We are looking at signs and lying wonders, and how many people were fooled by it. So my critics will say, well, LA, who the heck are you? The Catholic Church. Well, actually, the Catholic Church has never given 100% sanction over it, although Francisco and Jacinta, who died before they reached their teenage years, were canonized by Benedict last year, in fact. So that's kind of odd. Or Francis, rather. Benedict stepped away from Fatima. Francis came back full steam and embraced Fatima to the point where he canonized Francisco and Jacinta, much to the delight of all the people that go to these places. But if it's something else, let me just kind of weigh in on this. If it wasn't Mary the Bible, if it was some other entity that communicated telepathically with the children, then I'm right. And what about the strange phenomena that happened over the heads of the people during that day? This is not a nice, benevolent little story. It's shocking, actually. And we talked a little bit about that in one of the programs. But car windshields explode, gasoline spontaneously combusts, people are running for their lives. I mean, it's tumultuous. It's panic-stricken. So, the more I look at it, and my years of study with it, it was a UFO event.
Now, one of the very interesting things you talk about in your film, as it relates to the goddess worship, is the subject of gender fluidity of some of these ancient goddesses, and you employ a term called interdimensional transgender entities. And you made a glancing reference to modernity. And here's my question. Do you think the occurrence of these interdimensional transgender entities, i.e. the gender fluidity among some of these ancient goddesses in terms of apparitions and the lore attached to them, that they were gender fluid, do you think that the recurrence of the transgender fluidity in the modern transgender movement has any relationship to the ancient goddess worship?
Absolutely. I think the two are inexorably linked together. I think that this is a rise of the ancient serpent cult, the ancient goddess worship, which now we see accepted. Or let me put it this way: there's a group of drag queens now that are reading to kindergartners, and conservatives are beginning to push back on this. It's interesting how you allow a drag queen to come in and talk to my 6-year-old, but I can't go in and talk about Noah, or the Bible. I mean, where are we? And so what we see is the rise of gender fluidity in our culture. And the bottom line is, a person can take all the male or female hormones that they want to. It's never going to change their DNA ever. It's never going to do that. So let's take the one that we all know, Bruce Jenner, who calls himself Caitlyn. He's had the entire operation, including his male genitalia removed and surgically manipulated. He's taken lots of hormones. He now has breasts, long hair. He has facial surgery to look like a female, but his DNA will always tell him that he's a male. So, we can do all this. We can pretend, or with all due respect, and there are some deep-seated problems here with gender identity. I'm not saying that there's not, but there's a way out of this. In fact, there's a man that we interviewed on our program, Acceleration Radio, David Arthur, who lived as a woman till he was 35 years old. And he had sex with thousands of men. And he talks about this in the interview. It's just riveting. And with thousands of men, he contracted full-blown AIDS. And he was in the process of dying. Hospice was called, and David Arthur was laying on a hospital bed, too weak to go to the bathroom 15 feet away without a walker. And the one thing he knew is he didn't want to be away from God. He didn't want to go to hell. So he started reading the Bible. And in the process of that, he gave his life to Jesus. And there was a period of time for 2 weeks, which were, as he said, incredibly cathartic. He confessed all of his sin. And he was very, very particular and very detailed. He went through everything and confessed. It took him 2 weeks to do it, okay, because of all the illicit relationships he had. So he confessed that. And when he went and got his blood tested, they went, well, this is really strange, David. We can't find any trace of the AIDS virus in your blood. An absolute miracle. And up to this time, he was running a constant fever of 103 to 104 degrees. He had boils all over his body. He was too weak to walk without a walker. So God healed him, and now he's got a full-time ministry, and he reaches out. He goes to the places where he used to be, and he talks to other transgendered men and women and homosexuals, and basically offers them the idea that there's a way out of this, because there is a way out of it. That's what Jesus came to do. And it's not, mom and dad's religion. He's God, the real God. And his son came and died for us. And there's power in the blood. There's power in his name. And David Arthur knows that power. But gender fluidity is the reemergence of the so-called sacred feminine, which is global. Not only here in the United States, like Burning Man and other festivals, but go over to Europe where all the Druids come out during the solstices and stuff. They worship the sun and do all their ceremonies. Well, I know the God who created the sun. So it's very complex, but all this, of course, is foretold in the biblical narrative that because they did not believe the truth, God sends them strong delusion. And that's precisely the window of time that we find ourselves living in.
So this ancient goddess worship and these female apparitions, which are very old, are now in effect being re-energized with the modern transgender movement. Is as perhaps a last day deception, a last day rebellion against God's created order. And I'm sure as living in California, I think there's a move to make illegal what is called conversion therapy.
Yeah, the latest on that as of September 2nd was that they've shelved the bill for the time being because of already the pushback on it. So that bill's been shelved, but why still try to sneak it through at some later time.
Oh, right. Yeah, some Saturday night at midnight when evangelicals are asleep, they'll push it through. And then, of course, another major plank of religious liberty will have been destroyed. Christian counselors, pastors, everyday Christians will be hobbled and muffled as it relates to the life-changing power of the gospel to deliver men and women from all kinds of sin, including sins of homosexuality and transgenderism. So it's just another way of basically muzzling the gospel in these last days. Well, I'm getting a little political here, but hey, we need to apply these things to the day in which we live, and the
absolutely, David,
and the spiritual warfare that we are involved in as Christians. Well, this has been great. We're going to close off part 3 for now, and I'm going to turn it over to our announcer, Dane Rome, and he will share how you can obtain a copy of this latest film, Fatima 2, Strange Phenomenon, plus 2 other bonus L.A. Marzulli films that we're offering for an amazing combination price.
Thank you, Dr. Schnitker. Today, we're offering an amazing combination of films from L.A. Marzulli. Not only are we offering Fatima 2, Strange Phenomenon, but we're also offering 2 additional films from the Watchmen Chronicles series. These films are Fatima 1, Miracle of the Sun, or A Harbinger of Deception. And that's not all. We're also including, in their own words, UFOs are real. We're offering all 3 videos for the unbelievable gift offer of $24.95 plus $6 for shipping and handling. This is a regular $59.97 value for the amazing price of $24.95. To order this 3-pack video combo, go to our website, www.swpm.us, and click on the slider on the homepage. The website address is www.swpm.us. And please join us again next week for our next program brought to you by Southwest Prophecy Ministries. Until then, this is your announcer, Dane Rome, saying thanks for listening.